Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. You ready to get a little spooked today?
Always.
Okay, cool, guys. Today we're going deep into missing 411 cases.
Ooh, yeah, some of the spookiest stuff out there.
I know, right? And we're focusing specifically on those strange disappearances in U.S. national parks. The ones that have sparked all those crazy theories.
Right, people just vanishing without a trace. It's like the earth just swallows them up.
Yeah, exactly. And we're talking about experienced hikers, kids playing in their own backyards, people who just poof, disappear into thin air. And today we're diving into Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
Ah, the Smokies, beautiful, rugged, and full of stories.
Oh yeah, steeped in folklore and a whole lot of mystery too.
Yeah, disappearances, right.
Oh, tons of them disappearances. That'll make you think twice about leaving that marked trail.
What's so interesting about the Smoky Mountains is this kind of, this blurry line between, like, fact and folklore,
Yeah.
It makes those cases even more complex. Okay, so let's jump right in. Our first case takes us back to 1969, the disappearance of Dennis Martin, a 6-year-old boy who vanished while playing hide-and-seek with his family.
Oh yeah, this one's a classic. It's notable for both the massive search and all the conflicting information from authorities.
Picture this, over 1,400 people searching the mountains, Green Berets, even the FBI got involved.
Wow.
It was huge news, but even with all those resources, they found nothing, no trace of Dennis.
And then you have Harold Key. He claims he saw this strange man in the woods right near where Dennis vanished.
Wait, hold on. The FBI was involved in a missing child case, but there was no initial suspicion of foul play.
Yeah, that's pretty uncommon. And the Key sighting just adds another layer to it all.
It doesn't it?
He described seeing a man hiding in the bushes, and Key's son even told newspapers that he saw someone running through the woods. But the official Park Service report, they downplayed Key's account and even left it out of their final report.
It's like they were trying to cover something up.
It really makes you wonder.
Yeah, and to make it even weirder, the local newspaper they changed, Key's story said he saw a bear instead of a man.
Wow.
It's like someone wanted to sweep the whole thing under the rug.
It definitely raises questions about what they were trying to hide, and there's another unsettling detail that came to light when Dennis's father, William Martin, did an interview.
What happened?
He revealed that he didn't even know about this crucial eyewitness account until years later, and he learned it from the public, not the authorities.
They kept that information from the family. What's going on here?
It's not clear why they did that. And to make matters worse, William Martin later learned that Key actually saw a man carrying something over his shoulder, not just running through the woods.
Okay, now this is getting creepy.
Right.
And remember those Green Berets I mentioned? Turns out they were armed, which is pretty unusual for these searches. And there were even reports of wild men living in the park at the time.
Wild men.
Yeah, adding fuel to the fire.
Wow. The Special Forces involvement and the fact they were armed for the search, it raises a lot of questions. What were they really looking for and why all the secrecy?
Exactly. Was Dennis's disappearance just a tragic accident, or was something more sinister happening in those mountains?
And as if the Dennis Martin case wasn't disturbing enough, there's another disappearance just a few years later. Same park. And it has some eerie similarities.
You're talking about Trenny Lynn Gibson, the 16-year-old who vanished while hiking with her class in 1976?
Yeah, that's the one. Just like Dennis, she seemed to vanish into thin air, leaving behind a bunch of unanswered questions and a lot of official inconsistencies.
Okay, so we've got these two disappearances, both shrouded in mystery. Let's dig into Trenny Lynn Gibson's case. What happened to her?
Well, Tranny was on a class trip hiking to Klingman's Dome when she disappeared. One minute she was there, the next she was gone, just like Dennis.
Witnesses said she was last seen bending over looking at something off the trail, almost like something lured her away from the group. And just like Dennis's case, bad weather messed up the initial search efforts, making you wonder how thoroughly they could really search in those crucial early hours.
Makes sense.
Again, the FBI got involved for a bit, but they sided with the Park Service, saying there was no foul play.
Which is strange, given the circumstances.
Right. And another similarity to Dennis's case, psychics were called in to help with both investigations. It's like they were desperate for answers when traditional methods failed.
Grasping at straws.
Exactly. But here's where Trenny's case gets even weirder. They found footprints matching her shoes miles away at a shelter, suggesting she hiked a long way.
And given the terrain and her age, that would have been tough to do quickly or without anyone noticing.
And get this, search dogs picked up her scent in multiple locations far apart, even one in the opposite direction of where she was last seen. It's like she teleported.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, it's a really strange detail. And while no one ever figured out what happened for sure, there are a few theories about Trenny's disappearance.
Like what?
Well, like the possibility of stalking and kidnapping.
Yeah. A man named Kelvin Bowman had been seen near Trenny's house, and his car was spotted following the school bus.
That's creepy. And weren't some of her classmates considered suspects too?
You're right. Trenny was last seen with a classmate named Robert Simpson, and he gave conflicting stories about where he was that day, and even made some disturbing comments about her disappearance.
So we've got two cases, same park, a few years apart, both involving children vanishing under mysterious circumstances, both with possible sightings of strange figures, and both with a lack of transparency from the authorities. It's a lot to think about.
It really is. And the fact that Special Forces units were involved in both cases just adds another layer of mystery. What did they know, and why haven't they shared more information?
It's almost like there's something lurking in the Smoky Mountains, something that preys on visitors, but the authorities don't want to admit it.
It's a chilling thought for sure,
Yeah.
and it's led to a lot of speculation and theories over the years.
Okay, so let's talk about those theories. I know some people believe Bigfoot is behind these disappearances.
Oh yeah, Bigfoot's a popular one, especially since many missing 411 cases happen in areas known for Bigfoot sightings. But there are other theories out there too.
Like UFOs and interdimensional portals, those are pretty out there.
Yeah, they are. And while it's good to be open-minded about different possibilities, it's important to approach these theories with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Of course. So, are there any explanations that are grounded in science or psychology that might shed some light on these cases? Something that doesn't involve mythical creatures or aliens?
Well, there are a few. One theory is infrasound, which is a low-frequency sound that humans can't hear.
Infrasound, how does that tie into all of this?
Well, infrasound can make people feel uneasy, disoriented, even cause hallucinations. Some researchers think that certain geological formations or weather patterns could create infrasound, which might explain why some people act strangely or get lost in these areas.
So you're saying there could be something in the environment messing with people's minds without them even knowing it?
Exactly. It's both fascinating and creepy.
It is. Are there any other scientific explanations?
Some researchers point to rare and unpredictable natural events. Things like sudden sinkholes, rogue waves, or unusual atmospheric conditions that could disorient or incapacitate people.
That makes sense, especially in a wilderness area. But what about those cases where personal belongings are found neatly arranged or removed from the scene? That seems intentional, not like the result of a natural disaster.
Those are the details that make these cases so strange. And there are a couple of psychological phenomena that might offer some insight. One is paradoxical undressing, which happens in severe hypothermia cases.
Paradoxical undressing, I've never heard of that.
Basically, as the body's core temperature drops, people can suddenly feel like they're overheating and start taking off their clothes even though they're freezing.
Wow. So someone could be dying of hypothermia but feel like they need to strip down.
Exactly. And this could explain why some victims are found without clothes or with their things scattered around in a way that doesn't make sense.
Okay, that makes sense for some cases. But what about when things are found neatly arranged, like shoes placed side by side or clothes folded? That seems more deliberate.
That's where another psychological phenomenon might come in terminal burrowing.
Terminal burrowing. What's that?
It's a primal instinct that kicks in when people are under extreme stress or in danger. They'll instinctively look for small, enclosed spaces for shelter or protection.
So someone lost and disoriented in the wilderness might crawl under a rock or into a crevice.
Yep, and sometimes they'll even arrange their belongings around them, almost like nesting.
It's a sad but powerful image. Someone in their final moments desperately trying to feel safe and secure.
A stark reminder that life is fragile and our instincts are strong when we're facing danger.
So we've got infrasound, paradoxical undressing, terminal burrowing. It seems like there are a few scientific and psychological explanations that could potentially explain some of the strange things that happen in missing 411 cases.
That's true. But they don't necessarily explain every case.
Yeah.
And we're still left with many unanswered questions.
It's like we're trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. There's always something more to uncover, something that keeps us looking for answers.
Absolutely.
It's easy to get caught up in the theories and all the what ifs, but at the end of the day, these missing 411 cases involve real people, families whose lives have been shattered by these unexplained disappearances.
You're right. We need to focus on their stories. Imagine the pain of not knowing what happened to someone you love, having no closure, no answers.
It's a different kind of grief. And often these families are met with skepticism and judgment from people who can't understand how someone could vanish without a trace.
It's like society demands a simple explanation just to feel safe. If we can blame it on an animal attack or an accident, then we don't have to face the possibility of something truly unsettling, something we don't understand.
But as we've seen, these missing 411 cases aren't limited to the Smoky Mountains. They happen all over the world in all kinds of environments across different cultures and time periods.
That suggests there might be a common thread, something that links all these cases together, something we haven't figured out yet.
Which is why researchers like David Pollitt are so important. He's gathered a ton of data, analyzed patterns, and raised awareness about something that was often ignored or dismissed.
He's given us a way to understand these cases, to see the similarities, and ask the right questions.
So let's say someone's listening and feeling a little uneasy, maybe even scared to go hiking after hearing all this. What advice would you give them?
Well, I'd say that while these cases are definitely disturbing, they're statistically rare. Millions of people visit national parks and wilderness areas every year, and most of them come home safe and sound.
That's a good point. It's important to keep things in perspective.
Exactly. But it's also smart to be prepared and aware. Hike with a friend, tell someone where you're going to stick to marked trails, and be aware of your surroundings. And if you see anything out of the ordinary, don't ignore it. Report it.
Because every detail, no matter how small, could be a clue.
Right.
Yeah.
And by paying attention, by being observant, we might be able to help understand this phenomenon and bring some peace to the families who are still searching for answers.
So I guess the takeaway here is that even though we may never fully understand what's behind these cases, we can honor the victims and support their families by staying curious, seeking the truth, and never forgetting their stories.
Exactly. And maybe by exploring these mysteries, by confronting the unknown, we might learn something profound about ourselves and our place in this vast and sometimes confusing world. We might find that the search for truth is just as important as the answers themselves. And who knows, maybe the answers we're looking for aren't just out there in the wilderness, but also within us waiting to be discovered.
Okay, so we've got these two disappearances in the Smoky Mountains, both shrouded in mystery.
Right.
Let's dig into Trenny Lynn Gibson's case. What happened to her?
Well, Trenny was on a class trip hiking to Clingman's Dome when she vanished. Just like Dennis, she was there 1 minute, gone the next.
Witnesses said she was last seen bending over, looking at something off the trail. It's almost like something pulled her away from the group.
Interesting.
And just like with Dennis's case, remember the bad weather. It really hampered those initial search efforts. Makes you wonder how thoroughly they could really search in those first few crucial hours.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The FBI got involved again briefly, but they ultimately sided with the Park Service's conclusion of no foul play.
Which, is strange given the circumstances.
Right. And there's another parallel to Dennis's case. Psychics were brought in to help with both investigations.
Really?
It's like they were so desperate for answers that they turned to anything when traditional methods failed.
Grasping at straws.
Exactly. But here's where Trenny's case takes a really weird turn. They found footprints matching her shoes miles away at a shelter, suggesting she hiked a considerable distance.
A distance that, given the terrain and her age, would have been really difficult to cover quickly or without being seen.
Right, and get this, search dogs picked up her scent in multiple locations that were far apart, even one in the opposite direction from where she was last seen. It's like she teleported or something.
That is bizarre.
It's a truly baffling detail. And while no one ever definitively figured out what happened, there are several theories surrounding Trenny's disappearance.
Like what?
Well, like the possibility of stalking and kidnapping.
Oh, right. A man named Kelvin Bowman had been seen near Trenny's house, and his car was spotted following the school bus.
Yeah, super creepy. Didn't some of her classmates also come under suspicion?
You're right. Trenny was last seen with a classmate named Robert Simpson, and he gave conflicting accounts of his whereabouts that day, and even made some disturbing remarks about her disappearance.
So we've got these two cases, same park, just a few years apart, both involving children vanishing under strange circumstances, both with possible sightings of mysterious figures, and both with a lack of transparency from the authorities. It's a lot to unpack.
It really is. And the fact that Special Forces units were involved in both cases just adds another layer of intrigue. It makes you wonder what they knew and why they haven't shared more information.
It's almost like there's something lurking in the Smoky Mountains, something that preys on unsuspecting visitors, but the authorities are hesitant to admit it.
Yeah, that's a chilling thought. And it's definitely led to a lot of speculation and theories over the years.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those theories. I know some people believe Bigfoot is behind these disappearances.
Bigfoot. Yeah, it's a popular theory, especially because So many missing 411 cases occur in areas known for Bigfoot sightings. But, there are other theories out there as well.
Like what about UFOs and interdimensional portals? Those are pretty far out there.
They are. And while it's good to be open to different possibilities, we always have to approach these theories with some healthy skepticism.
For sure. So are there any explanations that are based in like science or psychology that might help us understand these cases? Something that doesn't involve, mythical creatures or aliens?
Well, there are a few. One theory revolves around infrasound, which is basically a low-frequency sound that's below the range of human hearing.
Infrasound, how does that fit into all of this?
Well, infrasound can cause feelings of unease, disorientation, and even hallucinations. Some researchers believe that certain geological formations or weather patterns could generate infrasound, which might explain why people behave strangely or lose their sense of direction in those areas.
So you're saying there could be something in the environment messing with people's minds without them even knowing it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a pretty fascinating and creepy thought.
It really is. Are there any other scientific explanations?
Some researchers point to rare and unpredictable natural phenomena as possible explanations. Things like, sudden sinkholes or rogue waves, or even unusual atmospheric conditions that could disorient or incapacitate people.
Right, those make sense, especially in a wilderness area. But what about those cases where personal belongings are found neatly arranged or like removed from the scene? That seems more like it was done intentionally, not like the result of a natural disaster.
Those are the details that really make these cases stand out. And there are a couple of psychological phenomena that might give us some insight. One is called paradoxical undressing, which occurs in cases of severe hypothermia.
Paradoxical undressing, I've never heard of that.
So as the body's core temperature drops, people can experience this sudden feeling of overheating and they start removing their clothes even though they're freezing.
Wow, that's wild. So someone could be dying of hypothermia but feel like they need to take off their clothes.
Exactly. And this could explain why some victims are found without clothing or with their belongings scattered around in a way that doesn't seem logical.
Okay, I can see that. But what about when things are found neatly arranged, like shoes placed side by side or clothing folded? That seems more deliberate.
Right. Well, that's where another psychological phenomenon might come into play, terminal burrowing.
Terminal burrowing, what is that?
It's a primal instinct that can happen in cases of extreme stress or danger. People will instinctively seek out small, enclosed spaces for shelter or protection, kind of like a safe place.
So someone who is lost and disoriented in the wilderness might crawl under a rock or into a small crevice instinctively.
Exactly. And in some cases, they might even arrange their belongings around them, almost like they're creating a nest.
It's a sad image, but powerful too. Someone in their final moments desperately trying to create a sense of safety and security.
It is. It's a stark reminder of the fragility of human life and the strength of our instincts when we're facing danger.
So we've got infrasound, paradoxical, undressing, terminal burrowing. It seems like there are a few scientific and psychological explanations that could potentially explain some of the strange happenings in missing 411 cases.
Yeah, but remember, these explanations don't necessarily apply to every case, and we're still left with a lot of unanswered questions.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. There's always something more to discover, something that keeps us searching for answers. It's easy to get caught up, in all the theories and the what-ifs, but we can't forget that at the heart of these missing 411 cases, there are real people, real families, whose lives have been changed forever by these unexplained disappearances.
You're absolutely right. Their stories are what truly matter.
It's a unique kind of grief, right? And on top of that, these families often face skepticism and judgment from people who just can't wrap their heads around how someone could vanish without a trace.
It's like society needs a simple explanation just to feel safe. If we can blame it on a wild animal or a tragic accident, then we don't have to face the possibility of something truly unsettling, something beyond our understanding.
But these missing 411 cases aren't just happening in the Smoky Mountains. We've talked about that.
No.
They happen all over the world in all kinds of terrain across different cultures and time periods.
Exactly, and that suggests there might be a common thread, something universal connecting these cases, something we haven't quite grasped yet.
Which is where researchers like David Paulides come in. His work is so important.
Absolutely. He's compiled a massive amount of data-analyzed patterns and brought attention to a phenomenon that was often ignored or dismissed.
He's given us a framework for understanding these cases, for recognizing the commonalities and asking the right questions.
Exactly.
So for someone listening who might be feeling a little uneasy, maybe even a bit scared to go hiking in the woods after hearing all of this, what advice would you give them?
Well, I'd say that while these cases are undeniably disturbing statistically, they're very rare. Millions of people visit national parks and wilderness areas every year, and the vast majority of them return home safely,
That's a good point. It's important to keep things in perspective.
for sure. But it's also wise to be prepared and aware. Hike with a buddy, let someone know your plans in the cruising, stick to marked trails, and just be mindful of your surroundings.
Yeah.
And if you see something unusual, don't dismiss it. Report it.
Every detail, no matter how small, could be a piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. And by paying attention, by being observant, we might be able to contribute to a better understanding of this phenomenon, and maybe even help bring some peace to the families who are still searching for answers.
So I guess the takeaway here is that while we may never fully understand the forces at work in these cases, we can honor the victims and support their families by staying curious, by seeking the truth, and by never forgetting their stories.
Well said. And perhaps by delving into these mysteries, by confronting the unknown, we might discover something profound about ourselves and our place in this vast and often bewildering world. We might find that the search for truth is just as important as the answers themselves. And who knows, maybe the answers we seek aren't just out there in the wilderness, but also within us, waiting to be uncovered. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Until next time, stay curious out there.